To do a really speedy introduction to using Camera Raw. I'm not going to go into all the features. I'm just going to go into a very simplistic approach to processing your raw files into images designed for a print outcome. So we have a raw file here ready to go. I did an edit earlier, selected this one from a selection of images that I wanted to process and turn into a high quality TIFF or PSD in order to print. It was taken in 2018 and it was shot on a Nikon D800. So I double click the software, the way my setup is set up, it's going to open in Adobe Photoshop, but as soon as Adobe Photoshop is aware that it's a raw file, it will then open Adobe Camera Raw. So here goes, there it is, Adobe Camera Raw, and you can see that all of the settings are 0. It tells us the ISO 1600, the focal length that was used 150mm on a 70 to 200mm lens. It was f4 at 160th of a second. So the clipping indicators are switched on. This is the highlight clipping indicator, and you can see as I click it on and off, the red blotches appear and disappear. And this is the shadow clipping. No obvious indications of clipping issues there at the moment, but that will become apparent as I start to change it. So that's what that red blotch is. It's saying at the moment there is no detail in this part of the image until you process it, and we will be processing it to get rid of that and to make it the way we want it. This is the next thing I want to draw your attention to, and it's the strip that indicates the settings that are being employed. So in this case, we have a profile, a color space profile of ProPhoto RGB, which is the recommended profile for making prints. If you end up wanting to use this on a website or for digital viewing, we have to do other things to the file in Photoshop, one of which will be to change the color space. But for printing, we like ProPhoto because it is the maximum gamut, is the maximum range of colors that are available in any of the color spaces. We're using 16 bits per channel. Older cameras may only make 8-bit available. Sometimes people force it to be 32-bit, which is not a good idea because the functions of Photoshop are limited when you use 32-bit. And the other thing that you want to make sure is set correctly is the resolution, which is for printing is always 300 pixels per inch. So all of that is correct. I'm happy with that. We now have to start dealing with processing the file. Immediately what I like to do is click on auto to see what it wants to do, and I know from having processed images from this shoot before that there will be an issue. It will make the dark background lighter because it thinks that's trying to make an image acceptable. It's using algorithms, it's not using any kind of visual cues, it's deciding based on its own experience what it thinks I want. And I know it's not going to be right, but I'm going to click auto anyway. And there it goes. It's done exactly as I predicted. It's blown, it's kind of corrected in here. It dealt with the clipping issues, but it's made the background too light. So I'm going to change the exposure. It's overexposed by 1.14 stop at the moment. I'm going to bring it back down to 0, which I think is probably too light, or sorry, too much. So I'm going to give it 1/4 of a stop, which is 0.25 roughly. And I'm happy with that. You can see the issues now with the shadow clipping. The red highlights are gone because there's detail now in these highlight areas. But there's shadow clipping going on, and I can get rid of that just by sliding the black slider into position. Bring the light back another little bit. Now that I've changed that, so it's now plus 0.1 stops, barely any difference between the original exposure and that. The other thing that I would look at routinely would be the optics. So it's very clever the way Adobe have designed this. They have a reference of all the lenses that are, well, 99% of lenses that are out there. So it knows the make, it knows the model, it knows the focal length that was used. It even knows the distance that the lens was used focused at when the picture was taken. And as a result, when you employ profile corrections, it changes and makes it correct based on the information they keep on store. Sometimes I like the results, sometimes I don't. It depends very much on the image. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to keep this profile correction in place. The other thing that one may look at, especially if you've used much higher ISOs, you know, like 3200, 6400, would be the denoise function. The way mine is set up, if I click denoise, it defaults to a setting of 50, goes through a fairly lengthy process, maybe take a minute or 2 minutes to do it, and it gets rid of the noise. But 50 is usually way too much, and it affects the image in negative ways. So I normally reduce it from 50 to somewhere in the mid-20s, say 25, for example, and that becomes acceptable. I'm not going to do that right now because it's a lengthy process. I'm happy with the way that image looks, and when I open it down here, I click on open, it will open in Photoshop. When it opens in Photoshop, then I've got options to start going in and looking at the size and if I want to change the size. So in this case, in Imperial, it's 16.37 inches by 24.53 inches at a resolution of 300. Remember, this is from a camera that's D800 is 36.3 megapixels. So, and if we want to see that in metric, it's equivalent to 41.59 by 62.31 centimeters. And you can decide you want to resize it to whatever you want. Normally I just keep these two linked, the width and the height, and whichever parameter I change here affects the other parameter, so that it never loses the aspect ratio, it never distorts it. I don't want to change the size, I want it optimized at the maximum size, so I'm going to leave that for now. And that's that print process, or that image processed, ready for print. Once again, I may go in and change the size depending on the outcome. If it was an A3, I would make it 42 centimeters wide, which would then give me the default height for whatever that happens to be. The thing to remember about pictures from digital sensors is that they are not the same aspect ratio as A-size frames, A-size paper, A-size portfolios, because it's just not the same aspect ratio. So if you want a non-cropped image, you need to be looking at using borders. In any case, that's processing raw for now. I will then save this, and I will save it as a PSD. It's already defaulted to PSD, so I just click save, and that's it done. The process is complete, and I move on to the next one.